Hey guys, what's up? Jared here, Decks and Dice, Ramblings of an LGS owner. And yes, I'm still stuffed up. Sinus infection just does not want to go away. It's just hanging on for dear life. So I apologize in advance again. I know it's annoying, but here we are. So allow me to jump on the bandwagon of reserved list versus newer cards in Magic the Gathering. For those of you who don't know, which might be a lot of you actually, because I have a theory here. A lot of you are probably newer. You don't know what the reserved list is, or you just really don't care. Reserved list is essentially really old cards that are worth. Some of them are worth a lot of money, but they were never to be reprinted again. In a nutshell, that's the easiest thing I can tell you about the reserved list. You got your duels, your moxes, your lotus. The power 9 is on there. A lot of good stuff from like Mirage, Tempest, Urza's Block, etc., etc. A lot of powerful old cards are on the reserved list, but there's been a lot of talk lately about people not caring about the reserved list, reserve list cards, flatlining, not doing anything, people actually selling and or trading their reserve list cards for newer singles and products, looking at you, Final Fantasy, which is kind of understandable, but at the same time, me personally, I wouldn't do that. But there's a divide between me and someone who's only been playing for probably about 5-10 years or whatever. A lot of the reserve list stuff, it means something to me because that was the time frame that I actually played, that I actually care about, I was actually I was actually doing, in-store tournaments, stuff like that. I was actually trying to, I don't know, be a sweaty tryhard during those times. So, like, those older cards, they mean a lot to me. So, I care about the reserve list and those older cards, but a lot of people, newer people, don't, which is fine. You don't have to care about the reserve list, but it's something you should look into anyways, just because it's the history of what game you're playing that is really cool. Okay, I'm just going to press on. There's doesn't seem to be any excitement about it, and I guess that's kind of why, because the reserve list has either plateaued or absolutely not tanked, but gone down a little bit, but most of it is just flat. There's no movement really. It's stale. There's nothing going on, nothing exciting. And you have all these new sets coming out with cards that are worth hundreds of dollars right off the get-go. And people are more excited about them because I think it's an easier chance for people who missed the earlier years to actually obtain cards that are worth hundreds of dollars, like if you were playing, pre collector box, we'll say, like you had your you had like your Kaladesh masterpieces, there was the Japanese Liliana and War of the Spark. You had your little pockets of cards that were expensive, but your chances of getting them, because you probably joined too late and the product, like the sealed product, simply wasn't there. So your chances of being able to experience opening up like a sealed box or something to get one of those cards was slim to none. And you were paying way more, maybe not way more, but more than what it would have cost, when you were there when it launched, we'll say. So I think that plays a huge role into why we're seeing a bunch of the newer stuff do better than reserve list cards is merely because of just it's easier access. Even though it's really hard to pull these things, you're here in the moment. You're here with the same exact chance of someone else who just bought a pack as you to pull whatever. Like, we'll use Final Fantasy because everyone's punching on Final Fantasy. Like, if you buy a collector a collector booster pack, your buddy buys a collector booster pack, you both have pretty much the same chance to pull a chocobo, to pull a serialized chocobo, to pull a Surge Foil Tifa that I pulled a couple of days ago. You know, you both have the same chance to do that. The same, it's there in the moment, you know? They're not like booster boxes of older sealed, I don't know, Kaladesh or whatever, which I think are like $400 or $500 a box now. Like, and let's be real, the chances of you pulling anything of note, like a masterpiece or anything, super slim. I mean, you could probably go through a full case or two, I think. I don't remember the pull rates, and not pull one of those. And the boxes themselves, just the booster boxes themselves, the ROI is crap. And that's one of the problems I think a lot of people see with buying the older stuff too, is you're not the 9 times out of 10, the cards in those boxes do not add up to what you spent on that booster box. You're better off leaving it sealed. But with the new stuff, again, you're here in the moment. You know, your chances of getting something really expensive are just as good as someone else who just bought something as well. Like, you're here on the ground floor. I think that's one of the reasons why it's doing so well. And I believe that's part of a tinfoil hat theory. I believe that's part of like a WotC Hasbro customer retention game that they're trying to play. Like, let's say that you've been playing forever or whatever, but you didn't come in time to enjoy Urza's and earlier. You know, let's say you've been doing it. God, I can't think of anything on top of my head. Let's pick a random old set that's probably no one cares, like Kamigawa or Lorwyn, you know, something like that. Let's say you started back then, where you can still say that you experienced, you know, masterpieces from Kaladesh and all that good stuff, and you know, you've seen some stuff, okay? But like, you know that these newer sets coming out, your chances of pulling something awesome are cool, because there's no way for you to go back in time to be able to like pull a guy's cradle, or you know, pull a Mox from a revised, you know, box, or an unlimited box. You know, you're not going to be able to buy a couple of boxes of Mirage and Tempest and be able to get like the tutors and all that good stuff. You know, you're not going to be able to go back and do that. So your chance to pull a Surge Foil now, or a serialized card, whatever treatment they may do, like the raised foils from like Bloomburrow and Thunder Junction, like your chances of doing that are way better than experiencing anything from the past. And I think that hook of, hey, look, we have expensive cards here and now in these sets that price-wise rival the older stuff on the reserved list. So why not just enjoy the new stuff and forget about the older stuff, you know? And I think that little hook right there is just enough to get into people to be like, well, this stuff is expensive, or can be expensive. It can be a collector's item. You know, the gambler's fallacy or whatever is there with, oh, just one more and I'll get it. Just one more and I'll get it, you know? Like, it's there. That little hook is in there to keep people seeded into the new stuff, you know, set after set after set, regardless of what anyone tells you. The first thing to sell out in this new Magic era is what? Collector boosters. Yeah, because everyone and their brother who has money in this game or just started a year or two ago or whatever knows that there is your ticket to high dollar stuff. Everyone knows that. And if they're kind of trying to do like, I don't want to say price memory, but I can't think of anything better. If they're trying to do like price memory of like, you know, duels are a couple of $100 a piece, your moxes are a couple of $1,000 or whatever, you know, like mana vaults, they went up to a couple of $100, you know, the older stuff like that. They're remembering like those price points now, and you're pulling this, we'll use Tifa again, this Surge Foil Tifa that's like $400 or whatever in your hand right now. You just pulled it from, hold on. Yeah, you know, you just pulled it, and she is $400 or whatever she's currently going for right now. And you're like, well, this right here is a dual land, essentially, you know, barring like an underground sea or whatever like that. But this is just as much as a dual land. And it's kind of mind-boggling. But you're here to be able to pull something like this from a sealed product that you can buy here and now to be able to pull something like that, which is, like I said, I think it's the main hook that Wizards is working in there to do some kind of a weird customer retention thing, because we all know that, I think their studies show that the average lifespan of a player is 2 to 3 years or something like that, 2 to 4, 3 to 4, no more than 4 years, but you know, people cycle out. So I'm wondering if they're maybe trying to get people to stay more on the, after they get tired of playing, quote unquote, getting them to stay a little bit longer with the collector aspect of things, of like, well, I don't play anymore, but I know that these cards are worth a lot, so let me just stay in this game a little bit longer and just buy collector boosters or whatever and just become a collector, you know? And however long that stays, who knows? It might become a lifelong passion for some people. It might only net Wizards and Hasbro another year or two out of someone, but that's a year or two of revenue from someone who's probably just going to buy collector boosters and collector packs, you know, that WotC and Hasbro now has, on top of just when they were players and they were just playing the game for enjoyment. So I think that's probably the main thing that is causing most of this reserve list versus new stuff. The new stuff it's here now, like I keep saying, you know, I hate to be like a broken record. It's here now. Your chances of pulling them are just as good as anyone else's, and you're here now to experience this, I don't know, golden, shiny, flashy era of Magic, and you're on the ground floor. Okay? So just, I think that's, don't want to hammer that in any more than I possibly have to, but I think there's also something to kind of keep in mind, though, is on the long term here. Are the new cards going to, like singles, are the new ones going to age as well as, you know, old school reserve list stuff has? I would say it will probably age on par, with a caveat of saying that with the older stuff, I don't believe that the print runs, I could be horribly wrong here, wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last, but I don't think the print runs for the older stuff was anywhere near as high as it is now. So with that being said, old school reserve list cards, there's just automatically going to be less of them out in the wild. They're going to be more rare regardless, just because of print runs were lower and natural attrition of like floods, wiping out collections, people just stuffing them in attics and mice and rats eating them, etc., etc. So they will, I believe, arguably, whatever you want to say, will age a bit better than modern day Magic stuff. Now, barring serialized cards with the newer stuff, because there is literally just that many of those cards, I think taking out serialized cards, most of the reserve list cards will probably outperform on a long enough timeline modern day singles. Now, as far as sealed goes, this is where I think it might differ. Okay? In this modern era, you have people that are just cracking stuff left and right. I mean, not like they didn't do that back in the day, but you have so many people cracking stuff today. Either it's just for mass box openings for shops like mine, to have singles, to just ripping shippers, stuff like that. The whole economy and everything around the TCG world itself is completely different than it was 25 years ago, So I happen to think that sealed product of this newer stuff, especially collector boosters, go figure, will probably, I don't want to say age better, but I think they will age on par and quicker than what the old school reserve list, the old sets did, merely because everyone is cracking all the sealed shit to hunt those shiny singles, where I don't think that the, there will be a lot of actual legit sealed newer stuff left on a long enough timeline, just because everyone and their brother is just cracking shit trying to find those serialized cards or those big hits or whatever. Again, could be horribly wrong about that one. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last. But that's just a tinfoil hat theory of mine that I think people might need to kind of start looking more into. I mean, sure, these Final Fantasy boxes, they're the play boosters. They're going to be in print for the next 3 years or 4 years or whatever. Like, I get that. So, as same as like Thunder Junction, Cons of Tarkir, Dragons of Tarkir, whatever the hell. Any of these newer stuffs, they're going to be in print for the next 3 or 4 years. However, I don't think that Wizards, Hasbro, whatever you want to call them, is going to print these newer boxes into oblivion, just straight dick in the dirt. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. I believe they're going to keep reprint waves at a conservative mark, enough to feed the vast majority of wants and needs of stores and people, but I don't think they're just going to like straight out just go in balls deep with the printing machine on these reprints. So, let me know what you think about that. Like, I'm really curious what you guys think about any of this, honestly, so please let me know in the comments below. But I think it's an interesting topic that's circling around, and there's a whole bunch of other different points of view on it and all that. I just wanted to kind of chime in and let my 2 cents be known for whatever reason. I also am curious if people, even like newer players, if they even know about the reserve list, and if they know, do they really care? Because like it, just barring like new commander players wanting dual lands and some other specific high-powered staples in commander, barring that, do any new players actually care about what's on the reserve list, if they know about the reserve list, versus any of the newer shit that they can get? Like, is there any real... Does anyone really care who's a new player about the reserve list? Like, if you're a new player and you're listening to this and you've gotten this far, like new player, I mean by like 3, 4, 5 years maybe, sub 10 years or whatever, do you really care? Would you rather like I've been saying, would you rather just keep buying the newer stuff and play that lottery game of it's here, I'm on the ground level, let's go? Or would you rather sink that, we'll say $600, just arbitrary number, sink that $600 into some of the reserve list cards and sit on them? You know, like what do you want to do as a newer emerging player? What makes more sense to you? Because again, to me and my old ass, if I had money like Rudy does, I would be doing exactly what Rudy does, and I would be scooping these things up just for shits and giggles, man. Just because they mean something to me. I don't care if they, if I buy a volcanic island for, I don't know, $450 or whatever. I don't really care if in the next 5 years it only goes up to 455. The card itself and just the way it looks, the way it feels, you smell it, like the artwork is way different than what you see now, because at least back then you actually had people painting shit versus what you see now, as I've bitched about before, is like everything just looks so fake and bland, and you just drew this on your fucking tablet and colored it in with the digital reds, blues, greens, blah, 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 like, sure, there's heart behind it and all that good stuff, but you lose a lot when you put everything into a digital form, like, I don't know, there's just something, I don't even want to say primal, because that's a bad word to use, but I don't have a better one. There's something primal in you when you look at like an older Magic card and you see that it's an actual like painting, like, or a drawing or whatever, and someone actually had to, pick up the colored pencils or the charcoal or whatever and actually sketch that shit out and color it in and everything. Like there's something there that the newer shit just doesn't have, because you can look at it, there's no emotion whatsoever, there's no feeling, it's just like, oh, it's a card with artwork on it, yay, like I don't, anyways, I'll drop it, I'll let it go, but please let me know what you guys think, like, reserve list versus new stuff, where do you stand on it? Do you agree with me? Do you have another outlook on it? Because like I said, there's plenty of them going around. Just curious as to what you might think. As always, guys, thanks for getting us over that 1K mark. We're now having to work on the 4,000 watched hours to hit monetization, so we'll see if we get there or not, whatever. But I do appreciate each and every one of you putting up with my ramblings and my old man yells at sky thing. So I do appreciate it, really do. Thank you. And I guess that's all I got. I'll leave you guys alone. And as I like to say, life is not a dick. You don't have to take it so hard. You're a trash can, not a trash can't. And yeah, I think that's all I got. Again, I'll let you go. I'm rambling now. Have a good one, guys.